Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, the show that gives you a virtual seat at the bar for the real conversations that happen between entrepreneurs. I'm interviewing all kinds of business owners, from those just a few years into freelancing to CEOs helming 9-figure companies. If you've ever worried that everyone else just seems to get it and you're missing something or messing things up, this show is for you. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, and welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today is my new friend, Michelle Fishering. And I mean that, like, we just spent the last 15 minutes giggling and talking, and I was like, oh crap, let's record. So say hi, Michelle.
Hello. I'm so excited and honored to be here. I have been an avid listener since I came across the podcast. So I'm very excited to be here today.
Oh, that makes me so happy. And like, what a way to kick off. We're recording on January 11th, first podcast episode of the new year of 2023. So I'm so excited for this. So tell us a little bit about your business.
Awesome. Okay. So, that just feels like I'm standing at the edge of a void. Like there's so much to say. So I have, my business structure is a little different than what most people I don't have a very simple answer to that, which is funny. I run both a strategic consulting firm and a publishing house, both with the name Chambre Bleue, which means the blue room in French. It's named after the most iconic of the French salons of the 17th century. Super quick little sidetrack for anybody who thinks that that's a hair salon. Because I have had that before. No, these are spaces where nobility and thinkers and writers and artists all came together in one room to engage in discourse and exchange ideas and have conversation. And not only do I love all of those pieces, but I also love that they were rooms that were almost exclusively hosted by women. And so the blue room, the Chambre Bleue, was it wasn't the first, but it was the most iconic, and it really set a stage for years and then hundreds of years worth of similar gatherings over time. So anyway, that's what I named my business after. And my mission is to engage in profound conversation and to facilitate profound conversation. So you can tell why I love this podcast. Also, you use that exact same terminology. So I love that.
Yes.
And with my strategic consulting, it's all about helping nascent thought leaders, people who crave building a business around their ideas and their thoughts, and adding speaker, writer, author to their bios. These are the people that I want to work with. And these are the people that I help build an ecosystem around their thought leadership. It's not just the book. It's not just the signature talk. It's not just one thing. It's not just the business. It's all of these things come together. And the result is what I call an intellectual legacy, impact, and your income, right? These are the things that people are looking for when they're saying, I want to do business differently. I want to show up on social media differently, or maybe not at all. Well, there are ways. I want to be more thoughtful. I want to put my ideas out in the world. And then with my publishing house, I publish impact-driven, primarily nonfiction. But basically, I founded the publishing company to publish the books from the clients I was working with, because as we were discussing before we got on the recording, that, the publishing process is just so unnecessarily complex.
Yes.
And can be very difficult to get in, and it can be very difficult to get good ideas out in the world if you don't meet some pre-qualifications, to be very diplomatic here. Anyway, that's a lot of stuff that I just kind of dumped on you, but those are the things.
I love that. No, I love that. I like to sit here and absorb and hear people tell me about their businesses. And you said a couple of things that I freaking loved that I wanted to unpack. One was this idea of not just focusing on the book, not just focusing on the talk. And I think, like, as a business owner, as somebody who's worked in the thought leader space, I totally get our brains are kind of wired for simplicity. We don't like to look at the overall picture because it feels overwhelming. I'm one of those people that can like zoom in, zoom out. And I can see the big picture and all the details. And I'm starting to understand how that's not necessarily common.
Yes. Yes, Angie, I'm exactly the same way. And my whole life, I thought that was normal. Like, doesn't everybody do that?
Doesn't everybody do that? Wait. You're looking at me with a look on your face. Like I just said way too much. Okay. I'm starting to understand. This is just the way my brain is wired, right? But like, I love that you mentioned that, some folks focus on just the book, just the big talk, and there's merit to that, right? Start where you start, do what you need to do. But then there's a danger zone there for folks who don't know what they don't know and can't work with someone like you to look at the big picture and how the book fits into the overall business and the overall goal, that we focus on the tactic above the tool. And I know that that's really common too in the business space of like, if you only use this one tactic, everybody get on Periscope. Remember Periscope?
Oh God.
Periscope. It's going to change your business.
I think that was before. I'm not really a social media. I never really liked social media. So for me, but I remember other people being on Periscope.
Mm-hmm. I don't even know if it's still around. And it was like live streaming. And then I think Vine, the same thing, but it was like 6 seconds. And I was like, okay, so now we got to talk about tools versus tactics, guys. All of these tactics are tools in your toolbox. And you don't use a hammer to fix every solution around fix every problem around your house. So you're not going to use a hammer to beat the crap out of your leaky faucet, So anybody that tells you that there's one way to get to success you got to look at their motivations there. Maybe there's one way to start or something to add into your overall arsenal, but there's not just one thing ever, anywhere.
Ever.
Just saying.
Ever. No, I totally agree.
The other thing that I loved was, and we talked about this a little bit before recording too, was unnecessary complexity. Because I feel totally victimized by that. Like I am a victim of Regina George here, and the mean girls are the business gatekeepers. Don't know why that popped into my head. I'm dying.
I love that you just quoted Mean Girls. Oh,
I was like, is that here?
Literally in my brain, I was like, oh, Mean Girls. And then I'm like, no, she has to be referring to somebody else. Like,
nope.
Love it.
I'm totally Mean Girlsing this. We're gonna start this year strong with movie references, just like I like it. But I spent so many years stalled out in growing my business because I was convinced it can't be easy. There's a lot of suffering and hustling and grinding that goes into this. I'm at competition with everybody around me. They're holding back information. I don't know how to do what to do. And I think the biggest, mind-blowing download from the universe that I got one day was realizing a lemonade stand is a business. Yeah. It's not a multi-million-dollar business, but it's a business. You're out there selling something to people who want that thing and taking money.
Yeah.
Simple. And I was like, oh shit, maybe we could just go out there and sell things to people who need the things and take money and be in business.
Yeah. Imagine that, right? I mean, I follow somebody who's built, a multi-bazillion dollar business, like running things like laundromats and car washes and because business doesn't need to be complicated. Yeah. And no, it's the exact opposite of what I do. Cause I help, ultimately for me, the people I work with are like the people like me who would have been academics, like in a dream world that they would have just like studied and gotten degrees for the rest of their lives.
Same.
Right. Like these are the people I love to work with because ultimately that passion doesn't go away. Like you still want to bring that forth. But I have a lot of respect for the idea of the simplicity of running a business that people need. And she's like a big proponent of, the world needs plumbers.
Yeah.
We need plumbers. Yeah. It doesn't always have to be this complicated business model or things like that. So from a simplicity, complexity standpoint, there's so many different ways to take that. And I one of the things that came up for me while you were talking about that when you referenced the Mean Girls, when you referenced the Mean Girls, the thing that immediately popped into my head was the thing that I have to say, this was one of my biggest frustrations because it kind of brings several of these things we've already talked about together, which is this language in the online business space when you're just starting out, the things that you must do, what you have to do to start a business. And you have to have your ideal client avatar or the different, there's so many different ways to refer to that, right? But I remember thinking I don't understand how I'm supposed to know who I want to, how do I know who I want to serve?
Right.
If I haven't served anybody, how is that step one? It can't be step one, or maybe it can be for some people, but it's not for me. And it took me an unfortunately long time to break out of the like all the ways that it should be done or it needed to be done. And yes, and a lot of that to me is unnecessary complexity, but it's also a lot of the shoulds and like how things must be done. And it's the same it is maybe even worse in the book world with, this is how you write a nonfiction book. I actually have a client right now who she came in saying that from a structural standpoint, she wasn't sure that traditional structures would work for her, what she was trying to accomplish. But in our sessions together, what came forth was sort of this quite traditional structure.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it was, I don't think that I done a lot of self-reflection to see, like, did I lead that? Because I don't want to be somebody who imposes my will on someone else's project. It's actually something I really pride myself in is I catch your vision. And it's all about helping you bring your vision forth. It's not me influencing your vision, right? Like those are two very different things. It's not me influencing your vision. It's love your vision. Let's do it. And that's the energy that I come in. I mean, this is like my favorite thing. Like I love somebody sharing their vision or their idea. And because I immediately start just firing on all the ways that it can come forward and the things that we can do and different angles. And I love that. But I felt I had some guilt around this. And I find she was struggling to get started then because she was lacking motivation and direction. And I came back to her and I said, look, listen, I'm looking back and I'm seeing that what we created was the opposite of what you said you wanted to create in terms of the structure, right? Like we created a very traditional structure for this book. And in conversation thereafter, she realized that, yes, like that's why I'm not motivated to do it because I'm not lit up. And I'm not feeling that drive and that fire. And so we came up with a new structure that doesn't really follow a traditional path. Like this is where my reader's going to start. This is the journey I'm going to take them on. And this is where I'm taking them to this like mystical land over here. Right. That's very traditionally, very simple structure for a nonfiction book. Right.
I think that's where we fall short of like this whole idea of follow your passion gets a little bit reductive, gets a little bit simplistic. Right. Because, if you follow your passion, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, you're going to work. You're going to work. And the biggest myth that I had to undo for myself, and I hope if you're out there and you're listening to this, that you feel this too, was thinking that if I left my day job and built my business, I'm going to be 100% happy because I'm going to be working on my own terms on projects that I love. No, even with clients I love and projects I love, I still have days where I'm not feeling well, or I woke up on the wrong side of the bed for no freaking reason whatsoever. And I'm just hating life today. But I also know that this day will pass. And so like, if 20% of the time, if the 80-20 is 20% of the time I'm frustrated in my business and 80% of the time I'm happy, I know I'm winning and I'm way ahead of the curve.
Absolutely.
So like to unpack that a little bit, I think that the roots of this follow your passion is really what you mentioned about being lit up and excited to do what you want to do, feeling some sort of like, yes, this is where I'm meant to be. And that can carry a lot of weight, especially when the money isn't coming in or projects are lingering or any number of reasons that we kind of get hung up or get in our own way. So I love that you brought that up. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I do think there's a difference between the idea of like, if you follow your passion, you're never going to work a day in your life. No, as you said, there are days, and it doesn't matter who you are and how many people you hire to work for you. There are occasionally tasks that have to be done because they have to be done. Right. And this is the thing that I find really fascinating about this subject is that when you have a vision and your vision is, whether it's clear or there's pieces of it that are clear, because sometimes not everybody is like, this is the thing that I want to create and this is what it looks like. And this is to every finite detail. It may be more of an amorphous, like this is the vibe or this is the right. But when you have a vision and you're working toward, to me, let's replace passion with vision. If you have a passion, right? Even when you do have to do something that you don't necessarily love, that's not like your favorite thing in the world to do, you're willing to do it because it's in service to that bigger, whether you want to call it a vision or a mission. Different people are lit up by different things, right? Your purpose. These things are all slightly different in terms of the terminology, right? But different people are lit up by different things. So, but that's when you say, I am doing this to bring my vision forth. And because it is of service, I'm sitting here in front of QuickBooks, like reconciling my bank account.
That was the exact example that came to my mind too. I will never love accounting or look forward to accounting other than like, oh, money, yay.
Yeah, like, yay, money came in. Oh, yay, I didn't spend that much.
But it's like for those of us allergic to math or accounting or anything like that, it does you no good to be the steward of your business, right? The person that's guiding that vision and have no visibility into certain aspects because you don't like them. So like, I love that you mentioned vision, because I think that palatable is not necessarily the right word there, but like that makes that easier to swallow. Like, okay, I'm going to eat this broccoli and then I get to have all the cheesecake I want.
Absolutely. You're like, yes, I'm doing this because ultimately I have to eat the broccoli because my body needs some nutrition.
Yes.
But my
and don't at me if you love broccoli. I don't want to hear it. I like broccoli too.
I do like broccoli too, but I actually don't really like cheesecake that much. But it's like my taste buds love the cheesecake, right? And that's all well and good. But my body needs in order for it to function correctly, it needs the nourishment and the nutrition. So I'm willing to do that for my body because I know it's really what's best ultimately. And it's fascinating because I just listened to a podcast with Brene Brown and Adam Grant, who are like two of my favorite, and they were with Simon Sinek. It's like all lovely, beautiful thought leaders.
How did your brain not leak out of your ears? Like, that's awesomeness.
Yeah, it was so good. It was so good. I really tried to sit with it over several days. I mean, usually I like plow through podcasts really quickly, but I like tried to sit with it for several days because I wanted to keep listening. And no, I'm not the biggest nerd you've ever met. Okay, maybe.
We like nerds. This is a nerd-friendly show.
This is
I sent a list of nerd names to my sister literally last night because she just got puppies. And I was like, if I may, here's a list of nerd
please. Okay, this is how we should market this podcast as nerd approved, nerd friendly.
Nerd approved. Permission to kick ass.
So I was listening to this podcast with them, and one of the things that I'll summarize this really quickly. One of the things that really struck me, Brene Brown was talking about that she still finds herself, she doesn't enjoy meetings, and she doesn't, and answering emails and some of those administrative things, right? But that where she's realized that there are times when being the leader requires her to suck it up and show up at that meeting and get the questions answered. And what she was pointing out that she had learned over time was basically that she got picked at less when she showed up for the meetings. Right. Because people could get their questions answered and the things they needed in that time frame. And so it was just like, just another extension of what we were just saying, which is like, when you just do the thing that you might not love doing, but that is in service to the bigger picture, it usually is, it's better to just do it and do it right and do it well and do it with some joy and some excitement and some interest and not, half-ass it. And I think that can be true for everything, but it's an important thing for entrepreneurs to remember in our businesses, especially in this. I feel like there's so much language now about like just doing the things that you want to do and
outsourcing the rest. Like, no, you still have to be involved.
You still have to do something.
It's literally like you're handing over the reins of your business to somebody else, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, a lot of people franchise and buy businesses and do that very thing. That's one of my long-term goals, is to own businesses that other people run. But my baby, permission to kick ass, that will always be mine. Yeah. And that's the stewardship, the guidance of that is mine. And if people aren't getting the answers they're needing and they are getting frustrated in the execution of that vision, that's on me for not being the leader that they need. Yes. And I think all of that circles back to what you mentioned in the beginning about how we're taught to build businesses, especially online businesses, about come up with your ideal client avatar and you need to know who you serve and all that stuff. I have long argued that I think we teach inbound marketing way too soon to people who are in early stage entrepreneurship. And inbound marketing, if you're not familiar with that, is when you go out there and you're building funnels and you're running ads and you're bringing traffic to you, all of those jargony words, right? The simplest form of sales I know, again, is that lemonade stand model. You go somewhere where people need something, you sell them that thing. You're there and they give you cash. Like, it literally does not have to be more complicated than that. There are people around you every weekend selling this way at flea markets, selling this way at garage sales. Some of those folks that are selling at garage sales are going to other flea markets and buying stuff for cheap and marking it up. Like, they're running legit businesses this way without all of the funnels and the lead magnets and the stuff that we've been taught. And here's the other thing, and it's hard to do the outbound marketing, which is, and I've been experimenting with it. I think I'm going to write something along the lines of, when you got to eat, what's the first thing you got to do? You got to go out and hunt and gather. The food is not coming to you. And if you plan this well, if you do this right, you can go out and hunt and gather until the crops you plant start to grow. And then the food comes to you. You know, you can start to build your little farm, your little co-op, whatever you want to call it. But initially, you're going to have to go out there and find the business, not just sit in your little corner of the world and build the perfect traffic engine for everybody to come to you. Spend all of these months and this time and this money building this perfect thing, only to find out you hate doing the work. Right?
That's an excellent point. Okay, I want to ask you a question about this. Okay, so what's your perspective or your take on, because I have a take, but I want to hear your take on an extension of this, which is the people who, I understand that there was a time in online business where it was possible to build an audience of clientele, and buyers, quite quickly on social media. I understand that the way social media was set up to function, especially in the early days. Anyway, we don't need to go into a whole economics of social media thing here, but today in 2023, let's say you started your business a year or two ago. So since 2020, if you're trying to build your business by posting content on social media, typical, know, trust content. Yep. To me, this is exactly what you were just saying, which is you're going out there, you're putting a message out there and thinking people are going to see it and are going to come in and work with you.
Oh my gosh. That's the other thing about inbound marketing that people don't get. That's the long game, just like planting a crop is. That's not going to, you're not going to plant the seeds today and see fruits from that tomorrow. If you think of it in terms of, there are some plants, right? We're going to get deep on this metaphor. Let's do it, because we're both literary people.
I don't think that you know that I'm also a farmer. So I'm loving the farm. Yes. I'll just take a pause and say that this whole time we've been talking, my cows are literally 2 steps outside my window eating plants they shouldn't be eating. And
fantastic.
And rubbing themselves all over my car. So anyway.
Quick question, because you know that families, especially in the States, are divided into one of 2 camps. Do you roll down the window and yell moo at the cows, or do you not?
I mean, if we were on this, I would have immediately got out there and been like, come on, guys. Come on.
I'm definitely, my whole family is in the camp of roll down the windows and scream moo at the cows. And then they look at us like we're idiots.
Somebody has to.
Somebody has to put these cows in their place. But to go back to this, there are some seeds that are quick sprout and you can eat sprouts and stuff like that. But if you want to grow an orchard, say you want to get an apple tree going, something like that, that is several years of work before that tree is ever going to fruit.
Yeah.
And there are distinct parallels to business, especially when it comes to building that inbounds, building that authority, because that's really what it's about, building authority and recognition and building up your name in the space. And what do you have to do this is where I think a lot of people get frustrated, because they start putting in all of that effort and they don't see a response on their, what they were hoping to see a response on the timeline. And they get frustrated and they quit, usually around month 2 or 3, I've found. And I tell them month 6 to 9 is the magic sweet spot of you consistently showing up, even if you haven't heard a damn thing from anybody. Nobody's told you they're even seeing it. You have no idea whether people like this or not. Somewhere in month 6 to 9 of you consistently showing up week after week, month after month, putting your content and your thoughts out there. I don't know if it's special algorithm juice. I don't know what the hell happens in there, but that's when people really start to notice and go, oh, maybe this is somebody that I could follow. Let me follow along and see what's happening. And then that's where you go into what I think we all want, from putting out that content. Somebody shares, say, the Permission to Kick Ass show with their friends. Right. Something goes viral, gets published on the news or something like that. But all of that is the long game. I mean, all of your favorite content creators out there did not put out their first video and immediately skyrocket to fame. And if they did, maybe they should be playing the lotto, because that strikes me as like incredible, incredible luck. But you can't build a business on luck. You can't.
Right. And you can't look at people who built their business on social media or as a content creator in 2012 and apply those lessons. You can't build a business the same way today.
Yeah.
Or you can't expect to, I guess. And I think that's where a lot of the people who have become big names in the space, like the really big names, they built their businesses so long ago that sometimes I listen to them on interviews and stuff, and it's like, you're
a little bit out of touch.
Yeah. Like your advice is out of touch, and not to say that it's wrong or bad. It's just like, they're saying, oh yeah, it's simple. I did it. You can do it too. And I have a bit of a concern about the, I did it, so you can do it too marketing ploy. I don't really love that.
Me either.
And this is one of the things that I don't love about it, is it's like, I did it, so you can do it too, presuming that we have all, like, that everything is exactly the same, right? Like,
same advantages, same resources, same ability to invest in stuff, same patience for learning new skill, right? I can do it. You can do it. What's wrong with you if you can't do it my way?
Yeah. It's it just is really, it's really interesting, but it's one of the reasons why I'm also so, fascinated by the idea of building a business as a thought leader. Instead of, I'm working on speaking into this, because it's something that it's really nuanced. Right. But there's like building a business as an expert, which is just helping people raise their context, right? Just giving them more information about something. And then there's a thought leader who is literally leading by giving people new ways to think about something.
Yes.
And I think this is where, obviously, not every single human on the planet is even interested in taking that next step further, right? For some people, like, being an expert is enough. And I don't say enough because it's not good. It's like, that's a sweet spot for some people. But then there are people who have this bigger vision and who have a desire and a passion for, and a vision for creating something that is based on a whole paradigm shift, right? It is based on looking at an existing situation in a new or different way. And that, we get to build businesses differently when that's what we're doing, right? We get to create content differently. We get to put our ideas in, and we're not putting little quotes that other people said on Instagram, like on a cute graphic, and putting that out there. Because to me, yes, that might be consistent. You might be consistent with that, but it's just noise. You are not changing the way anyone thinks about anything.
Well, and here's what else it is that I think people don't really recognize or acknowledge. It's safe.
Oh, so safe. It's so safe to use somebody else. This is what somebody else said.
I think this is really smart. I'm going to share this, and by association, I mean, and there's some parallels to what we talked about before we started recording, where I was like, my goal is to make everybody I record with sound like a rock star, because that's what makes me sound like a rock star. Right. So yeah, there's some borrowed authority there when you're looking at stuff like that. But I remember when I first started out as a copywriter, writing marketing materials, that there were so many people, and I got involved in a very like competitive, negative community. Like it wasn't great. But I remember so many of these people coming around and telling me how great they were, being so braggadocious. And then they're quoting all the greats. And I'm like, you know what I would think is great? A combination of results plus your own insights from doing this, instead of you just regurgitating somebody else's wisdom at me. I don't particularly like that. I feel, I mean, regurgitating, let's not
right. Just a word is like, but it's so true, because it's a safe position to take. And again, for some people and in some industries, especially like a lot of service providers and things like that, you being an expert, let's say you're a marketer, right? Like or a director of operations, like being an expert in that field is great. And that's what a lot of people need from you, right? Is your expertise. There are now maybe a few people. I have a client who has a business. She was a consulting CMO. And so she did marketing for people. And we started working together when she realized that it was time to sort of do a personal up level. And she's still running the marketing agency, but she's stepping more into a power, into a specialty in women's leadership and all sorts of really fascinating subjects. But it's really interesting to see how it came from this place of like, okay, I've run this business for 20 years. I've done this. I've been for lack of a better term, a service provider. And that's great. And I built this really successful business, and that's all well and good. I'm not interested in business coaching and teaching other people to do what I did there. I'm interested in asking new questions and shifting a paradigm around what we currently, around a current situation. I see a different way possible in the future. And I want to help bring that forth. And that's what we're doing. It's so exciting. And so, but it's like, but not everybody needs that or wants that or even has a vision for that. And I hope I'm saying that in a way that's like very respectful. It doesn't make you any better than or less than or anything like that. It's just some people aren't built that way, right? Some people don't have that visionary drive, and
not everybody is a thought leader. Not everybody has to be, right?
Not everybody has to be, and not everybody should aspire to that.
Yeah. There are creators and there are consumers, and we're all creators and consumers to a certain extent, but like, you don't have to be anything that you don't want to be. You don't have to be on a TED Talk stage if you don't want to be. You absolutely should be on a TED Talk stage if you want to be. Like,
and if you don't have something to say, that's powerful, then you probably shouldn't pursue a TED stage.
That's such a good line of thinking too, because, I was looking at my planning for the year and how I want to grow Permission to Kick Ass, especially since we just released our 100th episode today. Oh my gosh.
Exciting.
Big milestones.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you. And I was like, okay, so I want to grow this. We've hit some milestones, but there's a ways to go to get this out there and to empower people the way that I've seen this vision. And I was reading some media submission requirements, when you look at big publications like Forbes and Inc. and what their submission requirements are. And one article that I read was like, we're not looking for bland and boring. If you're going to write something, take a stand. Yeah. And that thought just came up when you were talking about everything, because it's hard to take a stand, especially in the internet outrage culture that's out there. You're going to attract haters. You're going to attract people that disagree with you. You're going to attract people that even poke holes in your argument sometimes, but you've still got to be willing to put yourself out there and start the conversation, and maybe even re-examine your position if somebody finds a good hole in your arguments. But like, not everybody has it in them to go out there and start that conversation with confidence and go, okay, let's see where this goes. This is what I think. What do you think?
Well, see, but you've also bring up so many important elements. I mean, one of the big pieces of my mission and vision, which is still unclear about how I actually go about doing this, but is helping people remember that dialogue and discourse require give and take, right? It requires, and that, like, for example, the word harmony, which is, I like as a word better than balance, but like a harmonious conversation or a harmonious dialogue, harmony requires difference. Right? It's not two things of the exact same thing coming together. It's two differing perspectives or two things that are different coming together to work together in a symbiotic way that makes something better than either of those individuals. Right? And so when we think about an idea, when we think about our ideas, and this is one of the reasons I love Adam Grant's work, is if we have an opinion, and we are saying something and we are certain that we are right and we are unwilling to accept anything else, that doesn't move anything forward. No. Right? What moves us forward is when we have a conversation, we take a stance and we say, this is what I think, or this is what I believe. And then somebody else can share their perspective, and we're willing to stay open enough to listen, to actually listen. And then to think if that new information changes what we originally thought. I mean, this is anyway. So I have a lot of opinions.
I
That's like a
love that.
whole soapbox I could go on there.
Well, because I want to go on that soapbox. Let's go on it. Because I know that like a lot of what I've been working with people on, I asked students in the past for feedback, and I remember running one survey to folks that I had worked with and said, okay, so what was the thing that you sought me out for more? And they said confidence. And I think to a certain extent, there are a lot of people out there that want to write a book or want to put themselves out there that they're looking for that confidence. But I'd argue a couple of things. One, courage and commitment come before confidence, because you've got to actually do the thing to build your confidence.
100%.
And then the other thing about confidence is tied into what you were saying so brilliantly before, which is that confidence is not being 100% certain that you're right in every instance of this and that nobody can argue with you. Confidence is knowing that you can figure out the solutions when you don't know the answer. Confidence is knowing that like you are secure enough in yourself to be challenged without melting into a puddle of like shame and tears. And no judgment on that, because I have definitely melted down into the shame puddle before.
Yeah, tears are like my body's natural reaction to everything.
Yes.
So it's like you just can't really do anything about that. And I don't really want to. So.
Yeah, I'm not great. There's part of the reason that I don't release the videos. Maybe that'll change in the future, maybe not. But it's like so past colleagues and teammates have given me hell for my face. I'm not a poker player. Whatever I think is going to flash right across my face. If I experience strong feelings, it's going to leak out my eye holes. Like, that's just how I process things. Same. I don't know how to do it differently. Well, like many people out there who have, the outside perspective of me, who haven't spent 20 years with me, like my best friends say, have a perception of me as being this supremely confident person. And I would say, especially since starting this podcast, my confidence has increased substantially. But if you go back and listen to the early days, like, for instance, here's one super big, obvious thing. If you listen to this episode and then you go back and listen to, say, like episode 99 or 98, when I had a different microphone and different music, like we're iterating and evolving and we're getting better as we know better, as we learn better, we do better. But you can't figure out everything there is to know to be perfect and unchallenged before you get out there and start doing things. And that means that you're going to do things wrong.
No, exactly. I mean, this is
welcome to the party.
Right. It's like, this is why imposter syndrome is a sign that you're doing something you should be doing. Like you're doing something new and different and scary. And so step into that, like accept it as a sign of, if you just always feel comfortable and safe, then you're not stretching yourself and you're not trying something new.
Yes.
I will say that I feel like conviction is the thing that I believe, and courage, conviction and courage. Every great movement throughout all of history. Okay, I say that. I don't like everys. I don't like very like absolutist language. So, okay, nearly every great movement, every idea that really changed things, every person that we can think of and like say that person was a visionary. It started with conviction, right? Conviction, and then the courage to do something about it.
Yes.
Not confidence. Confidence. And as you said, 100 plus episodes in now, and you're developing the confidence, because confidence is something that is developed in the doing.
Yes.
But it's the conviction and the courage. And this is where I will say it's interesting that you brought that up, because to me, this is the number one thing that, when we were saying that our strengths, that sometimes we were talking about this before we started recording, our strengths that we don't really know because it's just normal for us. I never realized, but something that I do innately that I don't even know that I do is I carry this unshakable sense of belief.
Love it.
And I pour that into other people. And I've had this reflected back at me a lot recently. So I'm learning to accept it as truth. But it was something that I was never able to identify, but it's something that I get to gift people with.
Yes.
Aside from the strategy and the vision and support and all of that, the number one thing that I give to my clients and that I give to people who I do this even when I do like a consultation call, not with somebody who's necessarily going to be a client, not just when we're just talking about their idea or their book or I cannot tell you the number of people who I have given the gift of belief.
Mm-hmm.
And just even saying that out loud gives me like chills, right? Because
Love it.
it is without belief, you can't take action. You won't take action, especially not on something that's scary or intimidating or overwhelming, or that requires you to put yourself out in a big way.
Yes.
If you don't believe that you're capable, if you don't believe that it's a good idea, if you don't believe that it's important that you say this, if you don't believe, then you're done before you start.
Yeah, you've got to believe it to be able to achieve it, to make it a little bit slogany there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But think about the direction that you're giving your brain when you set yourself a big, hairy, audacious goal, like get on a TED Talk stage. And then you've got this voice in the back of your mind and it's there, but you're just kind of refusing to acknowledge its presence, right? And it's saying, maybe for somebody else, but not for you. It's not possible for you. Well, do you think if you don't tell that voice to shut it and go back where it came from and refocus on the mission? And I have a great thought about that too. I'll circle back to in a second. But if you don't tell that voice to shove it and be like, here are all the reasons it's possible for other people, which means it's totally possible for me too. And it's going to be uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it because this is important. When you can pull you're giving your brain instructions that this is not possible for me, therefore we're not really going to try very hard. And if you're not trying very hard, how far down this path do you think you're going to get? There's the secret, guys.
It's not possible for the people who don't try very hard.
Yeah. And I thought all of this, I think, ties together super nicely in this thought that I was writing down about me-centered versus mission-centered. I think the root of, I know I saw your face and I was like, that just popped into my head. It's brilliant. I'm going to write about it somewhere. But I think, that lack of confidence, that self-judgment, those voices of doubt come when we have gotten to me-centered. What are people going to think about me? How does this make me look? How does this make me feel? And when you can go back to the mission that you're on, to liberate people, to let them borrow your belief, I love that, in themselves, to help them, leave this intellectual legacy. I totally wrote that down too. In my case, I was free writing about this the other day and it was like, what is the mission of Permission to Kick Ass? I want to, liberate an entire generation who's been brought up to believe that they need permission to do something, that they have to follow a certain path before they're able to do something, that there's a right way to do something, that, this culture of comparison over our misery. I'm so stressed and miserable. And it's almost a competition.
Yeah. Step out of that. This is not a competition for whose life is worse.
What if I want to live my life in joy and that's all I want to talk about? Am I saying that my life is perfect? Absolutely not. But that's what I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about how stressed and miserable I am. If I can focus on that mission of liberating people, of empowering them to create their own businesses, which, newsflash, here's a reason why that's a mission, not just starting a business. Entrepreneurs are job creators. They're economy stimulators. They are community uplifters. There is such a ripple effect in working with people who want to start a business, who want to bring money and wealth to generational wealth. Oh my God, that wasn't even a concept that was fathomable to me growing up a poor kid of a single mom, and sitting here and looking at all of the abundance and the opportunity that's available and going, okay, here's the slice of that I would like. How do I make that happen? Instead of, well, I wonder if I can actually make this happen. No. Mission centered, not me centered.
Yeah. I love that so much. That is such a great way. I can tell that you have this background with words because that's such a great way to say it. That's so good. And it's just so true. It's when we step back from, but it's the same thing to me. It's like the know, like, and trust is all about me. Right? When we use that framework is all about me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason that social media feels because it's usually used in the context of this is how you build your, right? This is social media. This is how you build your social media following. This is what it's all about know, like, and trust. And it's always been hard for me to resonate with that because it's not that I don't like to be vulnerable. I literally will say anything. We could talk about anything here and I would say it. But I'm also very private. So it's it's like a weird, right? And so I don't like to share. And it's not that I don't want people to know me, but there are things that are not really pertinent, in my opinion. I don't know. There's things about my life that aren't really pertinent to
I'm glad you brought that up because I was talking in a mastermind group late last year with someone who was, and she's super knowledgeable. She is a bona fide expert, and she's a business coach. And everything that she puts out is very straightforward, very, very smart and very intelligent. But because it's got that, like all of this is tying together so well, because it doesn't really take a stand, it doesn't incorporate her personality and the depth of who she is. It kind of blends into stuff. So we were talking about how to solve this problem, how she goes out and puts out her content with her own unique twist in a way that actually catches people and starts to bring her audience in. Right. And everybody was pushing her towards share more personal stories. And I could see that, like, when you can watch somebody else's walls slam up in front of you. And she was like, nope, I'm not sharing personal stories. Nope, I'm not sharing personal stories. And she had that same belief as you. And here's my twist as a marketer, right? This is the kind of problem solving I love doing.
Yeah.
You don't have to share your I lived out of a car story like I did. I'm fine sharing that because I'm an open book. And also, that's not appropriate for everybody, right? So I was telling her, what if you wrote about your struggles with sharing personal stories on social media? That is an incredibly vulnerable personal share that does not involve you talking about the depths of your personal private life. Right. And she kind of like went, oh, that's an angle. So like, whatever you feel called to share or not share, there is a way to do it that builds genuine connection. And I think that circles back to going out there and getting business and having conversations, because if you can focus on who you want to help, figuring that out, answering their questions, well, then that gives you all the content that you need to get out there and start writing stuff that brings people to you.
Right. And you're also tying that back into the whole like me centered versus mission centered, which is, it doesn't have to be me centered, right? Yep. It doesn't have to be my personal story. And yeah, it's not to say that like, because yes, stories are connection and there are ways to share stories that connect people, and that's what I believe that the heart of it really is connect people to the mission.
Yes.
And if that mission runs through your veins just as much as your business's, then it's going to connect all of those things, right? But we don't need to think about it from the perspective. I like stepping back from the perspective of it being all about me.
Yep.
And saying it's all about the mission. And focusing on that and using that as your barometer, not, how much of myself can I give, but how much can I serve my mission?
Yes.
And like, how can I steward my mission?
Yes. And I love that word steward, because I think like service gets kind of overused, especially in the online business, online marketing space. Just serve your audience. I'm here to serve. How can I help? Well, if you're here to serve, I think you know me well enough to make some offers on how you can serve. Why are you throwing this back on me as to how you can serve me? Serve and service. Those are very, they're buzzwordy. They've been sort of diluted and twisted, and yeah, absolutely. Stewardship is it's actually one of my most important values. So it's a word that I love. It also, for me, I was originally introduced to it as a farmer, and in my background in agriculture, the idea of being a steward of the land. But I apply it to everything in my life. And it's just like, when you show up from that place, it's, I think, deeper. Yes. It's like a deeper place than service. It's a deeper, more ingrained way of being. Absolutely. And it's so much more powerful too. And this is the last thing that I will bring up, because I have a feeling we could talk.
I know. I'm just like, we could keep following these threads and like, yeah. Yep.
It was like you mentioned earlier, like the difference between, I wrote down imposing your will as a coach versus being a more prescriptive coach. And I think there are so many people out there that are like, I found the way, do it my way. If you're not doing it my way, or if there's something that you're resisting, there's something wrong with you. And I think the real power and this helps you get back into mission focus again, is helping people to understand what's special about them, helping them learn to, and this is what I believe as a coach. I don't want somebody to do it my way. I will tell them a way that has worked for me, and I will encourage them to take the seed of that resonates with them and make it their own. Do what feels good, because until you trust yourself to take your own actions and learn from, the consequences of your actions, good and consequences are good and bad, guys. I'm not saying consequences in a you're going to screw it up way, but like you really don't learn to trust yourself and your instincts and your guts until you have enough courage, again, and commitment and dedication to the mission to put yourself out there, take a stand and do all these things in service of making things better. But it's great.
Yeah. And trusting yourself and your voice. I mean, it's such an important,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to develop that. Like that doesn't just like courage. It doesn't just, just like, it doesn't come from nowhere.
It doesn't come from nowhere. And like, there are a lot of great sources of this that I don't think we spend enough time talking about. For years, negative motivation was my source. I was very much able to tap into, oh, you think I can't do a thing?
Mm-hmm.
Watch me.
Mm-hmm.
Watch me. Tell me I can't do something. I don't think so. And that got me to a certain point in my career and my development until I started realizing I don't want to live in anger. I still want to be feisty and spunky and all of that stuff that I am, but I don't want to let anger and resentment and that be my motivation anymore. So then I had to find a new source of motivation, which is more about, again, that mission.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Oh, look at how we just tied that all up with a bow.
I know.
Love that.
Nice, neat little. So speaking of missions, tell us more about your mission and where we can find you online.
Okay. I mean, this is it. I just lived my mission for the last hour. I love this. It's all about engaging and facilitating profound conversation. So for me, we went deep, we went wide, we just followed the path where it took us. And so for me, this is like, I'm so filled up by this because this truly is how I get to live into my mission. And my business is all about helping, about serving other people and stewarding other people's conversations and their ideas.
Yes.
So anyway, that's all about my mission. I am most active on Instagram. Most active. That makes me laugh. I say that. I say that because I'm supposed to say that, right? That's what people say you're supposed to say.
It's like that's the one that I check most infrequently. Infrequently.
I'm not really a scroller, so I don't really do that. But Instagram, occasionally LinkedIn. If you reach out to me, I will see that I have a message or a comment, and I will absolutely 100% of the time connect, because to me, that if you took the time and effort to make a connection, I absolutely honor that. Nice. And for anybody who's interested in taking this conversation that we had today and exploring what it might look like for them, I love, as you can tell, conversations. And so for me, like a consultation call where we just get on a 30, 45 minute call and talk about what you're creating, what you want to create, what you're afraid to create, what your vision looks like. Is my idea any good? I've written this book. What do I do with it? How do I even think about publication? My consultation calls are more like strategy sessions. It's not a sales call. It's like, how can I help you? How can I support you? What do you need to take a next step? What do you need to have the information that you need? Like, what information are you missing to make the right decision and the right choice for you? Because these are all very personal decisions, and I can't tell you what makes the most sense or what's the best. I can give you information. And that's what I do in my consultation calls. So, awesome. Don't fear that it's a sales call in disguise. I'm just happy to have those calls. Awesome. So yes, in case you missed the whole point of this, write your book, have the talk, put yourself out there, do the thing that you're wondering if you can do. And we absolutely believe you can do, and you can borrow our belief in you until you believe it yourself. Thank you so much for being on the show, Michelle. This is a fascinating conversation, and we're going to have to do a follow-up. Yeah, totally. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored. That's all for now. If you want to keep that kick-ass energy high, please take a minute to share this episode with someone that might need a high-octane dose of "you can do it." Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the Permission to Kick-Ass podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you stream your podcasts. I'm your host, Angie Coley, and I'm here rooting for you. Thanks for listening, and let's go kick some ass.